You're listening to the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast, the podcast that keeps your practice sharp and your clients happy. I'm your host, immigration lawyer John Khosravi, and every week we're bringing you insights, tips, and real-world conversations with top immigration attorneys and industry leaders. Whether you're here to grow your practice, stay on top of the latest trends, or get inspired, you're in the right place. Ready? Let's go. Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Welcome to episode number 444 of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast. It's a really good one. Must listen. Talking with Ruby Powers, coming regularly on the show, but sharing so much advice from what she gets from all these conferences she goes to, her own podcast, the network that she has. We really go into like what's going on in tech and office management, office support, law, and practice, as well as what she's been through this year. We kind of share information on things we've learned, successes, failures, things we want to do more of. And so it's a blowout episode. This one really should you should listen to it. I'm not saying that lightly. I'll go for the whole thing. It'll really help your practice and the rest of this year and into next year. And as well, the idea of helping your practice, we have our concert processing course I'm teaching live on December 18th, 2-hour session, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And we'll be recording available for those who join. It's a purchase course, but go to our website. Actually, don't go to our website. The link in the show notes will have where you can go to register to fill in your information for lawyers only. And we may have a Black Friday sale. Who knows when this is going to go live, but essentially a couple days after this, I'll close it up. But fill in that box and I'll send you information on a potential Black Friday sale. So you have that. Having said that, none of the information provided here is intended as individual legal guidance. Please consult with an attorney about your case, but y'all know that already. Let's get the show started. Hey, Ruby. So good to see you again.
Yeah, you too, John. It's been a while.
I know. So let's
Maybe
kind
a
of
few
jump
weeks
into
or so.
I mean, you do so much. Like your day is like 5 days. You just went to another conference, and I've been seeing posts on it on LinkedIn a lot. It's been like a huge tech conference. So can you fill us into what it was and what you learned there?
Yeah. So I think that's why we postponed one of our last calls because I was going to that. So it's the Legal Tech Fund Summit. And it was in its fourth year. It was in middle of November in Austin. And you can request to be invited to apply. But you have to be interviewed and apply, and then you pay. There's no like vendors necessarily, and so it's a lot different. It's than a lot of the conferences I've attended, where most of the things are funded through like requesting CLE credit and the vendor and exhibit hall. And so the basically the people in attendance were those who like VC, planning to invest or investors. Then there was the legal tech CEOs, and then or if not CEOs, like executive, and maybe just one or two per company, probably just one. And then there was some big law, and then there was some small mid-sized law, but not that much. I sort of checked off a lot of different boxes, being a podcaster and a consultant and an adjunct professor. But there was academia as well. And who else was there? So I mean, imagine this, all of them together, and I think a few hundred people. And so it was really fascinating because academia had a few panels about like what they're doing and how they're instructing and preparing students. And they were also saying stuff like big law, don't, make them interview so soon and focus, on being in big law like so early in the 1L year. And then they were also saying things like, make sure, if you don't like what you're seeing, then don't hire the student. And it was like, whoa, but how else are we going to make change,
Yeah.
And then the investor, there was a whole session on like what investors look for, and like their life cycle of an investment. It was really fascinating. And just like 10 to 12 years, they're hoping to get their money even sooner. And they really look to the founder or the team, and how they worked well and what their experience is. And then let's see who else. The big law, one of the panels was about how they're making a lot of changes, but they still haven't changed their fee structure. The other thing I thought was interesting is I kept hearing the words value-based fees, value-based fees. It basically just mean like flat fees, pretty
Yeah.
much, or just not hourly billing. It's like a euphemism for
Yeah.
the opposite of hourly, retainer billing. I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's the words I'm supposed to use now." And so I got to talk with some professors, librarians, and deans of law school, and then investors. I heard some things about um, just sort of like what they're thinking, and yeah, the ABS, the alternative business is it structure, I believe it's called. Yeah. And sort of the proponents for that. We hear about that in like Utah and Arizona.
Yeah.
And then just that whole like non-lawyer ownership and sort of what's going there. They also mentioned that like just how fast tech is changing. It's like there's something about every 7 months or something. It was like it's just really fascinating how quickly things are changing. So there was the people who wanna buy the tech and are investing, then the people who are teaching the lawyers, and then the people who are in the big law, and then, and then there was, like, me, it was like, okay, I see a little bit of everything, you know? I mean, I hire lawyers, but, some of the ones that are coming out, they don't have the skills I need to hit the ground running, and you have to really invest to start seeing a profit after a while. So I enjoyed it because also like without having vendors, which is it's a different model because we're not like we didn't care about the CLE. There wasn't
Yeah.
CLE or anything. So it was a different way of doing it. It really what they call it like the Davos of legal tech. And so I also heard some investors talking about MSOs, um, and what does that? I remember that's basically like a different. You take it's like a way to do business operation solutions, and you take like the marketing, the hiring, the HR, whatever, and you take some of those types, the management services organization. That's what MSO stands for, and you take that away from like the law firm, for example, so they can focus on the law. And so there was this sort of like this idea of like trying to do that or proponent to that. I heard that discussion a couple of times. So overall, I just was grateful the opportunity to like really talk with the people directly and just have everybody was really open to discussion. There's a lot of sharing of ideas. And I wrote like this whole thing about like my takeaways and I'm gonna post it soon. But I don't know, it was like a overwhelm. It was like drinking from a fountain hose. I mean, I know and I realized something about myself. I was like, I chose the most changing 2 of the most changing areas I could possibly imagine, immigration law and, like, legal tech, and I decided to do both of them at the same time, so, anyway.
Well, there's a lot going on there. Well, real quickly, there's always this grass is greener on the other side. All the hourly billing
Uh-huh.
people like want to do value based or flat fee rates, and then the flat rate people are like, yeah,
Yeah.
the hourly billing that sounds really good because you get burned on flat rate many times.
Yeah, well, I did an experiment because I had kept hearing so many people talking about hourly in the flat. There was, like, sort of this movement going, like, it was, like, 7 or 8 years ago, I don't know, and I tried it, and it was really unsuccessful, like, I we were not it was bad financially, for us,
To do
and
hourly.
for things that were heavily, like, legal assistant based that we had already, like, had all our templates and all of our
Yeah.
systems in place. So in our firm, we're only doing hourly for, court because it is one of the things that's changing every so much, so much.
Hmm.
So, like, the things that are highly unpredictable, that's what we're charging hourly for.
Yeah, we institute a hybrid system, and we don't enforce it too often.
Yeah.
But when there's a thing that we know we get hit, and we have our systems, and it's flat rate, but then after we give it to the government, for
Mhm.
example, it's kind of we open it to hourly. If they come back with an RFE like nonsense, well, you didn't send a passport photo with your adjustment, like okay, well we'll send that or something like that. But if they come back and say, oh, you're arrested 10 years ago, and they're like, no, we never were, and then that's going to be a whole thing trying to prove that, and then that will kick in the hourly. So that's the best we could do. It adds a lot of conversation, people haven't
Mhm.
said no to us, but there's always worry if it's when the fee structure gets too complicated, it gets people paranoid that you're trying to abuse them or use them or something. So you gotta say, listen, I almost never
Mhm.
charge it, but we just got to keep it there because Trump administration. Trump really helps that aspect because people realize every day this guy's doing something different with the immigration system that makes it unpredictable. So that's been a help in that sense. So they know like I'm not just doing this to rip you off. It's just this guy every day. Steve Miller changes the laws on us, so it's hard for us to really plan out too far ahead.
Yeah, and we do the same thing. Like we have flat fees, we have hybrid. And so when the thing like the RFE, for example, if it's like the government's fault or our fault, wait, if it's the client's fault, we will charge them. If it's our fault, we won't charge them. And if it's the government, depending on how much work it is, we might charge them.
Oh,
So, if it's like something silly, like give us the English translation of this English birth certificate, really. I've heard about that. I've heard that
uh,
happen.
but what we have, it comes
Anyway.
up a lot is for affidavits of support. If they're using assets or the income is like kind of all over the place,
Oh, yeah.
as they get a joint
Yeah.
sponsor and they're like, I'm like, and sometimes they do, but they don't want to ask somebody. I'm like, listen, we have that on the backside. And if an RFE comes from you to add a joint
Mhm.
sponsor, we'll charge you some sort of flat rate at that time. But find a joint sponsor, you have, at least you know somebody. So we're not rushing to try to find something then. But so I just give them leeway so they
Mm.
don't have to spend extra money if they don't have to. But yeah, you got to really think of these stuff because it makes the world of difference when you're undercharging or it can really affect your bottom line.
I mean, I honestly just went over this with my team today. I was like, make sure you read the contract. And we're only doing what's in the scope of the contract. If
Yeah.
it's outside the contract and you're doing it, we got a problem. If you're not doing what's in the scope, then we got a problem. So like that's like the playbook. But then I also said like, evaluate the situation and if things have changed and it's necessary or we need a pivot, like bring it up to the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, so true. You really have to stick with the plan when you do flat fee
Yeah.
billing,
And
value-based billing.
the bigger thing you mentioned is this. There was a initials, the acronyms they put for it, but I've come to believe this is like the biggest, even bigger than AI. It's the most near term thing that's threatening. I'm not sure it's the best word of immigration practitioners solos. Is this sandbox that they have in
Oh,
Arizona, where business people could partner up with immigration firms, and we have these. We're siloed in these bars, and we don't have much competition other than between ourselves. And most immigration lawyers aren't that good at business. The ones that are, could rock it really well. But now we're getting these third parties. I don't want to mention names, but there's one firm I just see on LinkedIn and a hiring bonanza for 250,000 a year, 300,000, these kind of things for employment based cases and stuff. And you have your own firm. So I'll tell you what the name is offline, but it seems like these the Arizona groups, they get the technology, they get this, and it's kind of is, they probably use AI too, but that's the biggest competitor to soak up the market because they have funds for marketing and advertising and ads and all this kind of stuff. And that could be a real short term game changer.
so that's sort of what the conversation was like. If you do an alternative business structure, which allows non-lawyers to have ownership or decision-making authority, with combined with the MSO, which is the Management Services Organization, which is like a business entity that provides administrative, operational, financial support. And in fact, like I my financial advisor had offered me to do an MSO, like divide up all the things that are more administrative and create a different entity. Like sometimes that makes sense. But the idea also could do something like this where a lot of firms get together and they use the same case management software or they
Mhm.
use the same HR team. Or I mean, I've heard of some people sharing an HR employee between two mid-sized firms because it made sense. But anyway, like the economies of scale conversation, and so like really getting organized in that respect. But yeah, there were a lot of conversations about the alternative business structure and just the whole conversation about like, on one hand, it's about like access to justice and providing to breaking the monopoly or oligopoly of like it sounds strong, but like of law and just how things are. But then I think there's just the fear of change. But there's a lot of forces at play, and they've been going at play for a while. Like we've known about these for, especially the ABSs and the sandboxes,
Yeah.
and then sort of changing that with I think it's Rule 5.4, the law firm owner of a law firm, and in fact they're talking about if these types of things change around the country, around the world, in other countries, and then if they, group together and have these like ABSs with MSOs and they have that high efficiency, it's really going to force a lot of change. So I think the biggest takeaway is like pay attention to what's going on and see how you can pivot and evolve. And the conversation really is Like some people simplistically say, "Oh, just be more efficient, eliminate, automate." I mean, I say stuff like that too, but the idea really should be like, how can you reimagine delivering legal services? How can you package it differently and meet the needs of the people who, are underserved?
Yeah.
And I think I'm constantly mulling over this and trying to figure out what I'm gonna do going forward.
Well, I mean, let's talk about our firms for, I mean, 20, we're in,
Yeah.
it's right before Thanksgiving, we're recording this. So in 2025, what have you done to streamline your firm from beginning of this year? Yeah, I haven't asked you this question yet, so I'm going to think about it, but I have to think about it myself as I'm asking you for
It's
what the
okay.
answer would be. But uh, to streamline things from the beginning of year to this year, both out, analog stuff like just typical hiring, firing, and then more, digital stuff like to make things faster.
Well, for the last few years, we've been working on our tech stack and we changed over to a different case management software, which really sort of was like a domino effect because then we had to change some of the way the data came into our case management software and our CRM and how it connected to our billing and a whole bunch of stuff. So we moved over to that case management software middle of 2024, and in March 2025 we moved over. We connected our case management software to our QuickBooks Online with a better system to make it more seamless, I guess you could say. And that's worked. That's been great because there's like a lot less room for human error and it's a lot more automated. So and then we worked over to like the CRM and the intake and also like bots on our social media. So we've just I mean, it's almost like we work backwards from like what's our anchor program, and then we've been slowly moving to the front of the beginning of the life cycle of the firm. In terms of and in tech, I think also what I would say we've been doing is we've been letting a lot of companies use us as like a well, beta testing is
Yeah.
the fancy word. And so we've been trying out different AI tools, and we've created a tech committee. And committees can be really awesome when you don't have enough people, one person to do one thing, or it's hard to get the skill set of one person to be able to do all the things that needed to be done. But what I find is like the admin or reception versus the marketing versus the legal team, the attorney, like everyone sort of sees things from a different perspective. So having a tech committee with a few people from the different departments has been really helpful. And they've been so demoing these different programs and then saying, this is working. Oh, and they've been having regular meetings with some of the tech companies and telling them what works and what doesn't work. So that's one of the other things we've been doing. And I think with all the different legal tech conferences I went to, I really was, and all the legal tech CEOs and founders I interview, I've been able to learn about which programs are out there in the ABA Tech Show as well. And then in terms of operations, like we're just constantly tweaking our operations with the tech stack that we adopt because you can't do it by itself. Like if you change the tech over here, then it changes your procedure and you have to be updating your system, your SOPs. I think in terms of HR and hiring, if someone leaves, we haven't really been rehiring them unless that role is absolutely critical
Yeah.
because we're trying to absorb things with technology and cross training. But I think also, I don't know about you, we didn't really talk too much about this, but we saw like sort of like a downturn in business around October or so. And so I wasn't expecting business to get slower before Thanksgiving, but it felt like it got slower about a month and a half than it should have.
Yeah.
And so just sort
Yeah.
of making decisions based off of what that means getting through to the beginning of 2026.
Yeah, we've had a sudden drop in October in our leads, like essentially half the amount of leads coming in, which
Yeah.
I wasn't. I was expecting maybe to go slower. I wasn't expecting like a sudden one day, like shoot, all the calls cut in half, and it's continued. Luckily, of those that do call, like the quality leads were still good, so it's keeping us like going. But like,
That's
it
good.
was a.
Yeah.
So what's forced me to do is I've been like back on the marketing and videos and stuff, but my videos online get much less views. I used to put a TikTok out, get 10,000 views. Now it gets like 500 views. Some of it has to do with the fact that I had done it for a while. So the skill of doing these videos on its own, having a good hook and how you like think it makes a big difference. So, for example, I got back to writing on LinkedIn, and the first couple of them were duds, but now
Uh-huh.
I'm hitting. LinkedIn articles that are hitting 5, 10,000 views again. It's just you have to have the first line right and keep people going, and the right picture or no picture sometimes. But you have to put your headspace in it. But
Mhm.
there is something going on. Even Google has said, because our website pages too drop like 30, 40%, people going to our website. And Google itself has seen maybe a 30% drop, people are saying, in people searching there, because either Gemini answers it in the beginning on Google searches, or people are going to ChatGPT or something like
Mm.
that. So the people aren't going to your website anymore because they're getting the answers, or you ask them what are the top 5 immigration lawyers, and you may or may not be on that list, and they just go to that instead of going through Yelp or Avvo or something like that.
And also, I think we were mentioning before we went live, like the generative engine optimization, GEO instead of SEO,
Yeah,
which is the one we normally think about. And I was listening to some other podcasts mentioning it as well, but I even brought that up in my law class like a couple of months ago. I was like, how many of you actually use Google to find things? And there were still a lot of people raising their hand. But I was like, how many of you use like ChatGPT or some other AI tool? They're like, there was hands raised. But like, I literally think that since I polled my class 2 months ago, I bet it would change since then.
yeah,
And that's what I was starting to notice. I was like, well, I feel like Google's gonna start, is gonna lose the power that they've had over us since like I remember it was like 2009 or 10 when I learned about the Google ads, and I was afraid to not have them. One of the other things I experimented with was LSA ads because one of our mutual friends told me that they were awesome, and local service ads. I tried it for 1 month and it didn't work. In fact, I didn't get like one lead from it. It actually wasted time because my receptionist had to take calls because you can't, there's something weird like where you can't do the keywords. Like you can just say immigration law firm or something,
yeah.
but I don't know. I would love to have a discussion with anybody who can, tell me what worked, what didn't work. But I actually did bump into a marketing company and they told me, yeah, they don't work either. So I was
Some
like,
people are
oh,
killing. I did it for
okay.
like
I mean,
four or
I'm
five
always willing to,
months,
yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
the lead quality was just terrible. And we don't do everything. In the two
Yeah.
cases I did get through it,
Uh-huh.
the clients just were frankly so difficult and hand holding that there were losses how much time they, because I don't know. When I search for
Yeah.
something, I don't go what the ad is. I just go right below the ad. Even on Amazon Shopping, I go to like it
Hmm.
might be the same product that's the ad I'll end up buying, but oh, it's an ad. I'm not going to pay attention to that because it's skewed. Like it's like, and so I think most people probably do
It's
that. Yeah,
sponsored. Yeah.
sponsor. Like okay, I can't trust
Yeah.
it. It's sponsored. It's not legitimate. So
Yeah.
but like Yelp, I used to do it Yelp, but I stopped it years ago. But they've done it where like the first 50 things are ads, and then the natural ones come at the bottom, where you have to like go out of your way to try to find who the natural ones are. So they're milking it because I think they're losing place. Like I've always come on the first page on Google. Now it's page 4. That company
Hmm.
is I'm not sure what's
Oh,
going. Yeah,
wow.
Alpha doesn't come up. So regular people will search for law right now. I won't even find it unless you know about it. Which I didn't. I didn't mind Alpha because they did a good job of putting everyone there and had a place we could ask questions, stuff like that. And the ranking system
Yeah.
wasn't too bad, but these things are really now with regard to Google Ads. They're saying too the cost of Google Ads is going to go higher because people are getting less views on there. So it's crazy that Google is ruling the world, and out of nowhere, a couple years, last couple years, this new company is coming that's giving a run for its money. Unless Google adopts Gemini fully and monetizes that in some way. So that's a huge change in how the world's going to work in the next couple years. Hey, everybody, I want to jump in really quick to remind you of two things. One, like and subscribe wherever you're watching this. Leave a good review. We really want to get pushed up on Spotify to be number one. And secondly, join our private community page on a website called circle.so. We just hit the 400 mark, 400 members. We're going for 1,000. We really have a community there. It's just U.S. immigration lawyers only. We share CLEs, videos, AEO decisions. I'm banging the table. I'm not sure the sound goes in the mic, but it's so exciting how great a resource it is. And it's just growing, getting better, more active in there, and helping people find work, to find things they need to do to make their practice and become better immigration attorneys with all the craziness that we're going through. If you want to join, go to our website, immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Click on the community page. It'll take you to a questionnaire to fill out your bar info so you know you're a lawyer, and we'll take it from there. Free membership. Let's get back to the show.
When I do the statistics or look at the numbers of like who is hiring us, it seems like there's a lot of repeat business. And so we know we can keep our newsletter going, and like we've talked about in the past, and
Yeah.
and I I don't know about you, but like I this is probably really honest opinion, but I think I stopped doing videos a couple months ago regularly because it was just getting so depressing, all the stuff we were saying. I don't know. I mean, asylum, ICE pickup,
Yeah.
detention. So I've gotta get back up and start doing more videos again, but I was just like, how much of me not doing the videos caused the business, slide? And I'm like, I don't know how much of it caused it, but and how much it was happening to everybody else, because when I
Yeah.
hear other people mention what's happened to them, but, maybe some other people can relate to that, but it's just there's just, like, so much uncertainty, like, especially when I go on TikTok live and they start asking me all these questions and, like, the thing changed that day, so I'm all like I feel like I don't know anything, I've been practicing for 17 years, I'm board certified, but it's like
That
give me a
just
second
came
to
out,
look that
yeah.
up.
I'll
You know?
sometimes I'll be live and I'll be, like,
Yeah.
looking up research, reading the memo. I'm like, "Okay, I think
Yeah.
it's this, but give me a
I
second."
know,
Yeah.
me too. It's like, you hold that thought. Like
Like, this public charge situation, if they go hard at it, that's gonna be very difficult, people going constant processing. Imagine if you have a
uh,
601A waiver and they
is
get you on
it
public charge, that's
is it right now just for the Department of State, or are they gonna go all out on USCS and Department of
they
State?
for
Because
USCIS.
I've been sort of like
It's weird. They
yeah.
did a FCF regulation update that says they're getting rid of the Biden update, and then they're gonna bring new ones soon. So
Yeah.
it's coming pretty soon, and they're gonna go through like a lot of
Mm,
stuff. I mean, even asking sleep
probably on both
apnea, like
fronts.
what
Yeah.
is sleep apnea is gonna cause you tonight.
Oh, yeah, like, what's that about? Like, I was like, they were talking about, like, if people have obesity or diabetes or something,
Yeah.
like, what's gonna happen? Like, so someone says, "Yeah, I have that thing." Like, are they gonna say no? Is there gonna be a waiver for that? Or, like, can they come back in 6 months if they get rid of whatever? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
You
I
can't
mean,
really easily you can't get rid of what is it, type 1 diabetes easily. You might be able to reverse type 2 a little bit, but that's really hard.
is the panel physician gonna get into
Like
this? What if they make mistakes? It's gonna add so much
yeah.
variability to everything.
And I mean, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I was like joking with my team. I was like, so if they ban obese people, they're basically just banning Americans. Like, I mean, like they're just like, but anyway, no, we can cut that maybe. I mean, we have problems here, right?
Yeah,
We have
we're the
problems in
leader
the
in this
US. Like, I
stuff,
think
yeah.
like,
Drug abuse and
yeah, so
obesity, where
it's
the
like,
leader is in this kind of stuff, so I don't know.
we gotta work on this. I mean, I'm not saying I'm innocent from, we're always trying to get healthier, right? So,
I
um,
was eating so much pizza and leftovers from the kids that I last week have a chart where I keep everything I eat, and once stop myself from
uh-huh.
binge because I get embarrassed running. Oh, it's 4 cookies. I'm like, they're half a pizza. So, and then last week I dropped a couple of pounds just from forcing myself to write it down because I'm like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I have to write that
Oh,
down if
that's
I eat
good.
that. So we'll see how long that lasts. But
Well, I also feel like this is turning into a confessions hour. I just remember every time like Trump is the president, like I get unhealthy because I'm like working late, I'm
yeah,
stressed out, and I've been I'm more aware of it this term, so I'm trying, but I feel like what's happened in the last 10 months is almost like what happened the first 4 years, so I don't know.
yeah,
Anyway, but yeah, the stress what I've been researching is that, like, the cortisol and the stress can just, like, make it, like, nearly impossible to lose weight or, and it inflames all these other
yeah,
organs and issues, and so and what's the biggest problem? Like, inflammation, like, causes all the other problems,
yeah.
basically, so, anyway, so note to self everybody and everybody, like, let's take care of ourselves and, have those breaks, take a lunch break, go for a walk, enjoy your weekend.
Well,
Take your Thanksgiving or your Christmas or your whatever holiday.
if you can, because you talked about the transition from tech. Speaking of cortisol spikes, how
Yeah.
was that transition? 'Cause you started in 2024, didn't happen fully till 2025. So from having done transition myself, it's very difficult to change technology. How was the actual experience of that?
Well, I think I've shared with you before, like, we actually started in '23, and then it took a while because we had about 15 years of data to move over, and, like, that's a whole I don't know if we've talked about that before, like, live, but, like, I think that's what keeps people from wanting to change programs, and they have that status quo bias is because the uncertainty of like how long will it take and what will it look like and will you be able to make it move will you because when you embark on the move Like you there might be some moments where you're like, "Okay, I can cut my losses." But there's like a line in the sand where it's like you can't cut your losses. You're all in. You
Yeah.
got to go all the way. And so it was a lot of effort, and I am so so grateful that I did it not during the Trump administration. So that we had about a year or 6 or 8 months before the administration started with our new system to have some normalcy. And but yeah, I mean, I could talk a lot about that. You know, you just have to make the right decision where to go, and then know that it's going to take longer. It's like building a house. Apparently, it takes
Yeah.
longer than they say it's going to take, and then there could be some other unknowns along the way that could delay you and cost you more money and inconvenience. But you have to have the right attitude. You have to have the change management mentality. You have to get the buy-in from your team, and you have to keep true to your vision of like what are you trying to accomplish and why are you doing what you're doing, and remind your team. And you should have a few champions who believe and also are constantly being updated on
Mhm.
the program, and find ways to continue to onboard it and continuously training your team. Like we go to like the legal tech conferences specific to the case management software we use, but also to other ones, and we're always like learning what's out there, and encouraging our team to being trained on utilizing the system better.
And you mentioned I think you said you're using bots for responses on social media and stuff.
Yeah.
I think
Um
we have talked about this in the
well,
past,
it
but
was
how well is that working out?
Yeah, it was like one of our friends, mutual friends, who had one, who was using them. Actually, I've known about people using them for a while, especially like our influencer friends.
Mhm.
I guess we might be in that category, but like when I had like a lot of followers on their social media, and they had bots, and they were working on getting the data and like because what I had learned from them was you want to get the people's information because you don't want to be dependent on whatever the social media platform is, because they could change the rules and you might not be able to get the information. Like just for example, I remember on the Facebook groups, like if somebody applies to be in your group, I it was so weird. Like if you accept them, then the data that they answer the questions to join disappears. So I had to like screenshot. I don't know if they've changed that, but like that's just an example of like you're beholden to the social
Yeah.
media platform that has the information. So you want to have the information. So basically there's bots out there you can get to like be like auto respond, but then also try to collect the person's information like phone, email,
Yeah.
and name, so that you can try to put them in your the pipeline and your newsletter and that type of your
Mhm.
CRM, that type of thing. And so right now we have it on most of our social media except for TikTok, because there's something weird about TikTok that makes it hard to do that. So we've been experimenting that with the last few months or so. It apparently seems to be working, but I guess I have to go back and make more videos.
Yeah, I
So
get that too.
to keep it going.
You could have a full-time person just doing
Yeah.
videos all that could be like a full-time job because it's just so much and it's changing a
It
lot.
really could, like yeah. I mean, content creation is so time consuming, and I'm really a proponent for recycling content
Yeah.
as much as possible. But at the same time, you still have to this stuff is changing every minute. So unless you like get on like what's that you type up the script, and you just have an avatar
Yeah.
of yourself, and you synthesia or something like that. But still, I don't know. I feel like I don't know if we're there yet as people to just watch an avatar bot read off the news.
Yeah, but I was talking to somebody today. He's used 11 labs and he talked with it for 2 hours. So he's got his voice down and it could like answer calls and stuff, do
Uh-huh.
that kind of stuff. But it's
Mm.
it's iffy how it's gonna happen, but at the same time, people kinda could tell, like, I think inevitably the human I don't know, the AI is growing pretty well, but there are certain things, even mistakes we make or things that are they sometimes say, like, people always wanna have the perfect face, but sometimes when you have a scar or something off in your face, there's a beauty in that that makes it real, and I think that's gonna shine more until the AI figures that out and does those things on its own.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's what I enjoy having my podcast too, is just like the conversations and the genuineness and
Mhm.
authenticness. But I also realized like that's also what I enjoy about doing consultations as well,
Mhm.
because it's like learning about the person's story and finding out more about them and making that connection. So yeah, I think that's the other theme, like, if we're talking about themes of the year, it's just that, like, leaning into tech, but also being a human,
Yeah.
and, like, one of the more recent podcasts, we called it, like, "Don't be a bot," or something, and, like, we're just having fun with that, but even, another colleague, friend, who's really big into marketing was like, do the things that the tech doesn't do and lean into that,
Mhm.
and I agree with that. And so I think we're gonna continue to see that going forward on and that and I think the other theme in general is just like what's our highest and best use of our time because a lot of things could be automated and eliminated or done faster.
Yeah.
Like even when I okay, this is crazy. While I was driving here, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna rewrite my holiday card message. So I just like spoke to ChatGPT. I was like, help me write a message for the law firm that's got character and pizzazz, but then mentions XYZ. And then, I'm all like, I'm literally drafting this while I'm driving. I mean, with my voice. This wasn't we couldn't do this last
Yeah.
year or the year before.
It's a
So
full-on
like what
assistant
what are
now,
we gonna
like
be
a
doing?
extra person next to you at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember hating the holiday card drafting message drafting moments because not because I hate holiday. No, it's because I was like I wanted to be perfect,
Yeah,
and I was just like, how do we can we encapsulate the whole year in like, a couple hundred words, I don't know how many characters or whatever it is.
I hear you, I hear you.
And so then inevitably we're always ordering them late.
It
'Cause
helps with the writer's block because you kinda put your ideas out, then you can read it and keep working with it. It's like having a writing partner essentially
Yeah.
that doesn't have writer's block that can help push it. Some of the problems gonna be, especially with people coming up, kids and stuff, is to just leave it out to AI, but if you're wise enough to use it as an assistant rather than your brain, there's
Mhm.
I always think like, wow, I wish I was 20 and this is out, or I was 18 when I had more time and less responsibilities. Maybe I wouldn't be smart enough to have the. There's this thing like I wish I knew what I know now when I was younger, but if I had my knowledge now with time and
Isn't that a
energy,
song?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But if I do now, you get older and it's kind of like, wow, like it's a powerhouse if you combine these. But that's why, this morning I'm going to have him on the show. This gentleman who's really into AI as an immigration lawyer. And he's telling me this stuff. I'm just like,
Uh,
I feel like it's 80 years old after 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, slow it down. Let's go to A. Okay, now B. And he's already at Z. But I'm like, I have to do this because like I can't be like an old timer that gives up on it on this tech because this is like what it's going to be. And the 20-year-old, 25-year-old is going to eat my lunch if I don't stay on top of it. So you got to dive into it.
well, there also is another school of thought right now about this is and, that was one thing that they said at the TLTF was like, right, you generally, like, in the training, there's, like, a pyramid, like, there's, like, a lot of people at the bottom who don't know a lot, and
Mhm.
then it's sorta like progressively you move up when you have more experience and that type of thing, but they were saying something like it might turn into more of a diamond, and we're like, "Okay," we're like, "We're all trying to figure out what does that mean?" But then I think what I'm also hearing is that, like, a lot of entry level work and there's a lot of headlines on that too, not just the law, right? But like one big law firm was saying that they have like a 20% reduction in new hires for first year associate, but because I think more or less they were saying because of AI, but then there's also just like these entry level positions that can be done because of AI tools and things like that. So then the problem's going to be is how are we going to get people to the next level if they never get that job. And like and so I think we're gonna have this whole issue about like training and we're gonna have to revolutionize the way we train and we think and we do. And that's also why it also brings up the whole law school conversation. So I was really grateful that they had panels with academics and law professors and deans because I was like, yeah, we need to have a conversation about this. In fact, I'm super passionate about it, and I'm like, we need to have more AI and legal tech and law practice management taught at law schools because the practice of law is dramatically shifting.
Yeah. It's interesting because the last question I want to mention is you mentioned about rehiring this position I was lost and not rehiring tech, and you had mentioned earlier, and that was kind of goes to this, and the same here. We're focused on essentially anything we can do AI. That's first, second, and third thing about how we use technology to do it before we look at a person. Because being an onboarding person has so many
Mhm,
costs and emotional money, all this kind of stuff that it's something I want to be like a secondary, tertiary before we get into that, and that becomes a big problem for people trying to get in the game now I got to plug my own course. If you can buy
mhm.
these courses and then maybe apprenticeships will come back where you instead of paying a law school essentially or after law school
Yeah.
we pay like an attorney to work. We pay them to work for you. That kind of apprenticeship could come back. But the thing is, if they know that it's hard because they don't know the question asked, but you could use the AI to learn about how to practice immigration, all this and that. But it says wrong stuff, but you
Mm.
don't know the questions even asked. That's the thing about it. Like you don't know. So uh, the only thing I get is apprenticeships and having hands-on courses, like 4L essentially courses. As an attorney who does trademark teaching, she calls her course like 4L, which is very smart. I was gonna take that, but she already used it up. But it's that extension of like getting someone who could teach you this kind of stuff because they won't necessarily hire you or and nowadays hiring again is so expensive. Even if you're going to be intern now, you have to pay you, so it becomes really expensive.
I recently interviewed someone for my podcast, Ray, a professor from Albany Law School, Ray Brescia, and his book is Lawyer 3.0, A Guide to Next Wave Lawyering. And it's sort of a little bit similar to what we're talking about right now, just sort of the change of the profession and what the new version of the profession is going to look like with the new technologies and also trying to create more affordable and effective service delivery and so, I it just came out very recently. I'm looking forward to reading it, but I just had him on the podcast recently as well. And I think these are the conversations I'm having, I'm hearing, I'm seeing, and like these are the themes that are happening right now. The people that are really paying attention to all of this. Because if you're just like, I'm just working
Yeah.
and not paying attention to what's going on, you're gonna be at a loss because 'cause you're gonna look up and you're gonna be like, What what happened?" You know?
For sure. Really quick, I look up the book and I saw a what's it called on this TED talk yesterday with this librarian saying the idea for
Uh-huh.
ebooks was that it's gonna be cheaper and stuff, but ebooks are essentially the same price as hardcover books nowadays, and you don't even own it. They can take it away from you. So it's like you think like it would have been like $5 for an ebook. They don't need to print it, all this kind of stuff. It's all profit. But it's so annoying because I look at this
Yeah.
book and it's like I want to get it. So the first I'm not bashing it, right? But it's like 1814 for Kindle edition, and I'm like, I'm like, give me a paper edition for that same price or something.
Well, my book is, like, I guess $20 cheaper on Kindle than it is the hardcover, so it is, like, more substantially different, but you're right, when I buy Audible books, like, it's almost the same price, sort of,
Yeah,
and, like, you're right, it's just, like, on my device or something, and so then if I really like it a lot, I'm all like, "Oh, now I have to buy the paper version so I can highlight it and"
yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm in that generation where I grew up with the analog and then I became digital, and so
I still
I'm
need
in
to write
transition.
it and
So
highlight. I just absorb it better if I'm reading it. I can touch it. I know where the paper is. So I'm still getting books. And
yeah.
sometimes I get the audio. I'm like, oh, I wish I just got paper because there's so many notes in here. And when they talk, it's just rushing through it. I might not be paying attention.
Yeah. Same thing. I only got into Audible, like, the last couple of years, and sometimes I'll get to go through them so fast, I'm like, "Did I really learn
Yeah.
anything?" And I have to go back or buy the paper version. But yeah, that's why I'm also fascinated about you do a lot of courses. I do a lot of presentations and courses too, but like how do people learn adult learning and just, how do we retain information? And even with our
Hmm.
clients, and it's different ways like through visuals, through audio, through being
Yeah.
questioned and asked, and to recap and I don't know, I find it
Yeah, I
fascinating.
was in my discussion with the other attorney this morning. He brought up how Notebook LM has training for kids, especially. No, you could like put a video in there and say, okay, make cue cards and like practice cards or practice questions, make sure you're
Uh-huh.
retaining them. And I want to do it for my course a long time
Yeah.
because it might force people to like stop and think about what I said so it doesn't pass them. But I was too lazy to think of the questions. But now I can upload it to Notebook LM and say, get 10 questions to be able to pass, go to the next part of my course. You got to answer these. And you kind of do that with kids, but at the same time, it helps the brain to kind of focus on what we learned and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try using Notebook LM for that.
Yeah. I told my daughter about NotebookLM and she uploaded her own notes to it and turned it into like a podcast reading
Wow,
out loud
it's
like
incredible.
what her notes said. And I said, "Well, how was it?" She's like, "It was fun because they talk like me." Like cuz it literally was like her notes,
Yeah.
so but I've done that sometimes where I'll upload, an article. I remember I was, like, driving back from the airport, and I uploaded an article that I wanted to read, but I couldn't read and drive, so I was like and so it turned into a podcast so I could just listen to it.
Yeah, I put
Or,
AO
there's lots
decisions
of
in
different
there,
ways to digest that
and
information. Yeah.
it did a great
Oh,
job
yeah.
breaking it
Okay.
down. I'm like, "Oh, man, this is, like, too good." Uh, it's just weird, but at the same time, like, you have less
Yeah.
time to the next level is, like, I have less time to listen to our podcast, so now I'm getting the transcript, putting into, like, AI and say, "Give me the top 10 talking points," which is gonna kill the viewership, and people listening to this might
Mm.
do that 'cause they count the whole thing, just
Yeah, don't listen to us say these things.
just get the information quick and go.
Well, okay, this is a legal tech immigration insider thing. So the other day, like I was in the middle, I had no time to do anything, and my one of my team members asked me, like, "What does this say?" And it was curse bands on something complex, and then I took a picture of it. I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and I said, "Can you put this in plain English?" And then and then I was like, "Okay, now I get it." So, because it's like, 0 spacing in between and
Yeah.
double negatives when you read the case
Yeah, we read
logs.
the INA, it's just like this such a hard thing, the two I 212, 245, and I'm reading it. I've had to read like 50 times to understand
Oh,
it, so
yeah. 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 I mean, I wouldn't suggest doing this, like, I mean, we live in this space, but it was more of like having a base of our knowledge, and it's just sort of like a and then we'll go
yeah,
back
it's
and
the
double
first
check
read
it,
through.
that
It's
type
that
of
gets
thing.
you
Okay, I
like
get it.
accustomed to
Yeah.
like, okay, what I'm
Yeah.
gonna get myself into, and then go deep. Like as I do it, because these code of federal regulations come, they're like 40, 50 pages. And it's like daunting sometimes to
Oh,
read it.
yeah.
I'm like, okay, give me a first synopsis of what things you think I should watch out for, or you thinking, and then I'll still read it because they may miss stuff or misinterpret or not catch the importance of something that I will. So I did that when I did this student visa update they did. It was long. I didn't feel like reading it. It was driving me crazy. But I'm like, okay, so I had ChatGPT do an initial read through and identify some stuff, but I still read it once. I did a podcast on it too. But it's yes,
Oh, that's
yeah, it's
good.
that's I mean, for lawyers, you gotta use it like that, but regular people, like, they're just gonna be putting it's probably gonna do the job, yeah.
Well, and I might wanna mention this. I just recently interviewed Jackie Schaefer from Clearbrief, AI, which does, like, legal research and writing, like, app service, and we went into, like, the whole, hallucination issue. And one of the things she said was it's more of an operations situation because, like, maybe, like, you're writing something and or somebody's drafting something, and then they pass it on to the attorney, and the attorney's, like, thinks that the person who gave it to them already, like, double checked the case law and all the
Mhm.
citations. But if that's not clarified, then that's why a hallucination could be pushed up or sent to a judge. And then she analyzed a lot of the citations and saying, I mean, sanctions and like all the penalties and all that type of thing. And it apparently was all over the map. But I just heard hallucinations AI, and I sort of like checked out. I was like, don't do that. But then when she like went through and told me like what happens, and I was like, oh, okay, and my law practice management hat came back on, and I was like, "Well, you need to have a system, like, if somebody's in charge of the initial draft, who's in charge of checking the citations, and when and make that responsibility, like, in a checklist before you
Yeah,
you pass it on to, move it through the chain and submit it." And that's but the other side of this is that we've been so used to just trusting whatever the internet tells
yeah.
us like when we do a search, not necessarily like that all news is accurate or true because we know there's fake news or whatever. But and anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the point of it is that with these, sometimes AI is just filling in the blanks, and they when they don't know the answer, and then we can't take it as gospel and believe it's accurate. So we always, which is why this whole thing, like you need to know enough to know when it's right and how to find out the answer when it's wrong, and to think critically, to analyze what you're reading and finding out.
Well, I gotta run, but just opened up stuff because it kind of reminded me of
Yeah.
law review and blue booking and all that kind of stuff. But the next level issue then is the sycophancy that's coming up where they everything you write, it's like, oh, you're so smart, you're right. And it causes you to just think, okay, I'm good instead of like challenging you. So you got to work with the AI and have it where it says, no, don't just agree with everything I say. Challenge me as an opponent, devil's advocate. So yeah, it's gonna be a big problem because people are testing AI and stuff. The AI constantly is saying positive stuff. You're so smart, you're so great. They
Oh,
don't challenge it or just accept it. They've done research where the AI researchers themselves, when they're testing out the software because it's so sycophantic, they'll just agree with stuff that necessarily the AI is maybe incorrect on, just because it has an effect on human being when people are yes men like that. So that's something you got to work on,
yeah.
turn it off so it's not so agreeable with you.
Hmm. That's a good point. I'll have to
Yeah,
keep
that's
an eye out
that
for
you'll be
that.
hearing a lot
Yeah,
about
because
that.
like,
That's like the big thing that's happening now. So
well, right, because I think there's a lot of talk about like you're not supposed to use it as a therapist, and you can't think it as like a
yeah,
friend, and like there's like this because sometimes people are talking to it more than I guess
that's
a
happening. Yeah,
person
well, that's
or
becoming people's friends. That's
yeah.
could be positive for some. There's a loneliness epidemic. If they ever go into a lot of social stuff, we're going to be the petri dish of what the hell is going to happen next 20 years. It's going to be like a crazy time our kids are getting into. At least we got to experience the 90s as hectic as it was. It was kind of fun now in the 90s to think back on.
And it's like retro. Have you found that
Well,
out? I
on
don't know.
oldies
I
radio, oldies 101.
The 90s are
Yeah,
cool
no,
now.
they
Yeah.
play.
Oh, no, don't tell me that it's on the
Yeah, they
oldies.
play
Don't
90s
tell
songs on
me.
the oldies now. And I'm like, dude, come on, oldies. Like, because in the 90s, the 70s
No,
were
I
like
didn't need to
oldies.
hear.
Now I think back, like, poor people in the 70s. That was like 20 years later.
I I remember, like, the '50s were the
Yeah,
oldies, like,
we're done for. We're done. We're part of that group now.
"John, we have to end on a positive note."
Roby, thanks so much for coming on.
I was getting happy talking about '90s until you told me.
Could you remind us what your podcast is and your program, your circle, not your circle group,
Oh,
but your
yeah.
community page?
Yeah, we have a podcast, Power Up Your Practice, and we have episodes every week on law practice management and legal tech, marketing, operations, HR, mental health, a whole lot of different topics. And then we have the school community, SKOOL Power Hub for Power Up Your Practice, and you can join there. And you can also find me on Ruby on LinkedIn, Ruby Powers. So thanks for having me,
Thank you, Ruby. I
John. It's
appreciate
always
it.
a pleasure.
Talk soon. If you like this episode, follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, where we post the latest statistics, tips, and more. And stay tuned for more from the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast.